Now, a very important aspect here, apart from all what we have talked about, is sometimes how do you initiate some price changes. The typical two ways are like we talked earlier, one of price cuts. Now, why do we want to do something like this? One is the desire to dominate the market by offering the product at a much lower price. One consideration that you must have when you are doing something like this is the danger of falling into the low quality trap, because a lot of customers for certain kinds of products equate low prices with low quality. So you must be very careful. For example, if it's certain kinds of food products and if you are selling some that food product, say packaged atta at a significantly lower price, if you are a big company especially and you are selling the significantly lower price than say Godrej, Pillsbury or Annapurna atta, you might see customers looking at you in askance, because they'll wonder whether the quality of that product which they're going to feed their family is really good. Otherwise, the other issues that you might have is, if you already have a fragile market share, you might also want to wonder how exactly to use this mechanism of price. Is it really worth it? Also, you find there are other challenges that you have of shallow pockets. So what you really need to figure out is that while price cuts are good, you might have to see whether you're using it judiciously as a right weapon, or you're just using it indiscriminately. So be very careful when you're using price alone as a weapon. There are issues sometimes where you have to raise prices. I think many of us in India over the last 2 or 3 years with galloping inflation have seen prices rise across various product categories, right from cement to food products to homes to what have you. We have seen product prices rise almost across the board. So really speaking, one big issue here for anybody is inflation. Raw material costs, component costs, transport costs, all other costs, wage costs and things like that. Sometimes people also do it in terms of because they want to anticipate a certain kind of event. So they expect, for example, petrol prices, for example, certain taxes to be raised in the forthcoming budget. So in anticipation, they may just raise the price a bit because they think they can gain something from some event like this. Sometimes in certain cases there's an over demand. De Beers, the diamond company, has done this strategy many times. They have tried to stimulate demand but then kept and squeezed supply artificially, or because genuinely, but a lot of people believe it was done artificially, and therefore there is a situation of over demand, which then leads to a situation where you can charge more prices. Sometimes people also, in other many things which are project based or quotation based, if you do not accept the offer within a certain period, there is an escalation clause built in automatically. There are also escalator clauses based on situations happening or kicking in. For example, in many service contracts, if you were envisaging certain kinds of delivery of certain types of services, but you also want more of some services or more services, the escalator clause also kicks in. Sometimes it so happens that you unbundle certain products. If a product was sold along with some other accompaniment and that accompaniment has been unbundled, many times you find the prices of each of those products tends to rise. For example, if you were to sell a computer with a printer and a bundle price, and then you were to later on unbundle them, you might find the price is much higher. Similarly, the printer and the printer cartridge, you will find cartridges cost significantly more many times. Similarly, you will find if you take consumer products, you will find when you buy the mosquito mat, and if you buy the machine and the mosquito mat, you find the pricing doesn't look very, it looks much more expensive if you buy both of them separately. And then sometimes in some cases there are reductions that companies offer, with the reduction of discounts that companies offer either the channels or customers. Now what happens when your competitors do something? What kind of responses can you have? Now there are many things that companies do, and some of them are pretty innovative. Many times when there are higher costs or overheads or competitors, cut or increase prices, many companies do very different things. For example, a very common practice is to shrink the product that is offered but not reduce the price, but not reduce or increase the price. Suppose costs go up too much, the normal tendency is to add to the price, but many cases they shrink the product. So something which was sold at say 90 grams may now be available at 80 grams. You might not see much of a difference in the packaging. You would have seen this happen in many restaurants too, that the size of the idli or the chapati might actually become smaller, though the price remains the same. Sometimes many companies substitute with less expensive, more cheaper kinds of materials or ingredients. I've had situations where hotels give you different prices for samosas if you're going for banquets. If you want the best quality samosa, it has so many cashew nuts, so many kismises, etc., etc. If you wanted a lower price, the number of cashew nuts and kismis and other things seem to reduce, even the size might reduce. You also might sometimes add or remove certain kinds of product features. For example, if you look at cars, the kind of accessories that might be available. For example, if it already has a built-in music or audio system, maybe the audio system might either be reduced in quality or a different brand brought or eliminated altogether. Sometimes certain free services which are given like installation free or free delivery would also not be made available. And there are so many other ways by which companies can really reduce the offering but not reduce the price. And you can yourself see based on your experience how different companies and manufacturers have tried to get away with providing you less but charging you the same, in some cases even more. If there are price changes by competitors particularly, or you are also making price changes, one needs to be worried about two sets of people. One, your customers, how are they reacting? Two, competitors, how they are reacting. Now, if a competitor were to change prices, you have the following options. One is to keep the price at the same level. The second is to maintain the price and add value, so you look like a better deal. Third is to reduce price, if the competitors reduce price, you also match him. Third, sometimes you might have the contrarian view, where you increase the price and increase the quality. Or you also do something else, which is launching a low price fighter line. Now, different companies, depending on the stage of the product, their market share, their fighting power, the muscle power and so on and so forth, may follow one or more of these strategies for different products that they have. So, in conclusion, we know that price is a very important P, because it is that aspect which drives revenue for the company. The other P's are more cost oriented, this is revenue oriented. Therefore, it is very important how each firm designs its strategy to achieve the key marketing objectives. We have seen that pricing for a new product is quite different from, say, pricing for a more mature product. Export pricing is also quite different from pricing for the domestic market, and there are different aspects to consider as well. There are also situations where pricing has to be adapted. We have seen it based on geography, product mix, promotional, etc. And then you also have the situation where either you initiate price changes, reduction or increase, or you have to respond to price changes by your competitors and be very mindful of how customers react. All in all, pricing is a crucial decision and one must make the right choices.